Well,
Do I
here we
need to
are
give you
again, once
consent?
again, people, for the Scouser and the Scot. As you can see, there's three of us here, but the main one that I'm going to introduce you to now is the Scouser.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Well, what can I say? It's not often that I get to introduce a good mate, someone who I get on with really well, and we try and put the world to rights over multiple things. So let's do it. John, how the devil are you doing, buddy?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm very well, thank you.
That's a mighty fine mug you've got there, bud.
Yeah, this is Grumpy Eagle. It's an oversized tea mug, and I get through about 8 teas a day, a working day with this.
What do you take? What do you take in your tea, though? Do you take milk?
Yeah, no sugar. I can't
Oh,
be done with
proper,
that.
a proper man doesn't drink it with milk.
Oh,
I tell, I tell you a quick story. When I first moved down from Scotland, which was 91, beginning of 91, and I used to drink tea more than coffee at the time, and I moved to Yorkshire. And I used to get in and I'd say, I'll have a tea. And they'd deliver it with the milk already in it. Now in Scotland, or certainly in my part of Scotland, the milk would always be on the side because there's quite a few people don't drink white. So I'll get sick of this. And then eventually I got to say, I'd say, can I have a black tea? And they'd just look at me like I was mad. And they go, what's that? I said, well, what's black coffee? And they say, coffee without milk. Then what do you think black tea is then, you knobhead?
if
So
you're all
that's
fancy, they would stick a bit of lemon in there or a bit of honey.
I drink it with nothing, no sugar, nothing. Yeah, I'm just mainline it. Yorkshire tea. There are other flavors available, but Yorkshire tea is the best. Hashtag
Oh,
just
here we
saying.
go. Here we go. He's changing. He is changing.
He's
So
looking for
some of you,
sponsorship, I think.
Anyway,
yeah.
where things are done proper.
So some of you may recognise John. John is part of HRH. Obviously, we caught up a couple of years ago. Was it COVID? It was the COVID times, wasn't
I
it?
think it may have been 4 years
Oh,
ago. Maybe I was just talking to John before. I think it could have been about 4 years. How long's it been since you guys went on hiatus?
Probably about 3 years ago.
yeah, it must have been. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's so what's changed with yourself?
With me?
Yeah. What have you been up to?
Well, I've got older, I've got heavier, and I got a cold sore.
Hey, that's you. You've peaked, mate. You've made it.
Love it, love it. So yeah, obviously things have changed since COVID. Everyone's allowed back out to play. Tell us about HRH. Where you're up to?
I think we experienced the same things that people experienced during COVID. Obviously, we had to rest and we weren't doing events, and that was a worldwide thing. That wasn't just HRH or even the UK, or just the rock scene. And we suffered a little because of the amount of events that we were doing. We were very visible at the time. I think some of the events do one a year, and we at that point were doing something like 18 or 19. So every time we had to reschedule, or you could see it, it was there. As frustrating as that was. And I think, we got through it like everybody else. It's been a fight, I won't lie. It's been a fight for most people. I'm sure any other event that you speak to will say the same thing. And because we've got a partner with quite a big company that put on events around the country in some of their own bigger venues, we know that I wouldn't say they struggled, but I think they sort of experienced similar things that we did and everybody else did, namely that people weren't buying tickets anymore until nearer the time. And I don't think that's just because of HRH, because they weren't sure if it would go ahead, but I think that's true of all gigs and all concerts, on every level, from grassroots up to, O2 level. I think people were wary about whether or not they could go out. Some people were frightened about being around other people. I mean, you experienced the same things that everybody else has experienced, I'm sure. But it was a fight for a while. It was quite difficult.
I think the thing was as well that the other thing is people actually get out of the habit of doing it. I think a lot of people just get out of the habit of going out and they suddenly realised they could save a lot of money by buying drink in, staying at home because they'd done it for months and months and months and realising they were saving a load of money. And I don't think that
No,
helped.
you're
I think,
absolutely right. And people were buying dumbbells, so they could train, weight train. They weren't going to the gym anymore. They were training at home. So, people were little setups in the garage and that kind of thing. All sorts of things suffered at the hands of that.
yeah, and I mean, I remember at the time when, oh, I wish we could just go back to gigs. Well, I wish I so missed the gigs and all this. And then of course, what happened was, as soon as the gates opened slightly, every band and their dog that had missed the gig suddenly you had far too many choices and not enough people to go. So that didn't help you. And I'm generalising here from grassroots up, grassroots up to O2, like you said. And I know, I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I could understand it because bands wanted to be playing, they wanted to be seen, they wanted to be heard, they wanted to be selling merch. So it was like a bull charging a gate, but it didn't, and then it ended up, it didn't help at all. Because people were just constantly messaging. I get sick of seeing, I'd put an event on and I get say, oh, I'd love to go, but I'm already going to. Oh, I'd love to come, but I'm already going to. You're like, yeah, bastards. But you can understand.
Absolutely. Did you not see that some bands absolutely thrived though during the pandemic because they got really clever about how they use social media and they would do gigs from the garage or an unplugged session or something. There would be other things that they could do that people would still want to see live music. And I know it's a difficult thing to do watching somebody, on your phone or on your computer. It's not the same as being there. But a lot of people engage with their audiences and social media that way. I don't know whether that's because it's, please don't forget about us, or we can't stop doing what we're doing. So, this is what we're doing. I hope you enjoy it. It's different, but we hope you like it. I don't know, but some people were really quite savvy about how they put
Right.
themselves across.
Those damn crows did because they were just hitting the heights when it happened, and they used it well. But I think of all the bands that I've seen that really did make the best of it was Blue Nation. They really smashed it. I mean, they came out every week. They were fantastic at it. And then there was other ones that, and I'll tell you one of the things that I thought at the time, there were some bands that were kind of big at the time and sort of like doing good gigs and festivals and all that. And then they just did nothing really for about a year, 18 months. And I thought they're really going to go backwards. And these other bands that have done a lot will come forward. But then the problem is that when festivals were cancelled, etc., when they came back on, they kept the bands that had been booked before, a lot of them, which meant a lot of the ones that hadn't really done much during the lockdown suddenly were still there anyway. And that was one thing that, if I'll be honest with you, I was a bit disappointed with me working with like really grassroots bands at the time. I kind of thought a lot of them might have stolen up a bit, but it didn't quite transpire. That they're coming good now, but I think there was that drag from, they just kind of cryogenically frozen. And then the only thing that changed was if there were American bands or that or Europe, they couldn't come across. That opened. And you saw that. You saw that all the time, John.
I mean, John O or myself.
Not you, Jordan. You saw that because of your. Oh, he definitely saw it. He couldn't get out of fucking Liverpool, him. But so yeah, but you saw that way. You had to change because that was one of the things that negative people were commenting on about was the changes to your shows.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking about why, people in the bands getting COVID, people couldn't travel, the Brexit.
A lot of the bands at the time, became inactive as well because they weren't local to each other. So they hadn't rehearsed in a year or over a year, and there were a myriad of reasons why. Some people just didn't want to do it anymore. We had bands say, we've called it a day. It's not what we want. And it was difficult because again, we had a lockdown, we had a break, and then we had a second lockdown. You never really knew at that point when things were going to start progressing and get better. And again, as we've said, people were wary about being around other people in venues as well. We had bands that would say at the week on the Friday, singer's got COVID, can't do it. And at that point, you had to either distance or you couldn't be around people with COVID. So we lost bands for all sorts of reasons. But, the counterpoint to that is, of course, that other bands that you may not have known as well or hadn't been around for a while were active and were reaching out and saying, what, we realise that, you're losing bands here. We'd love to come and play for, we'd love to come and do this. And that worked out well. There's been some great bands and some, again, grassroots bands that have done really well and come out okay from the pandemic. We had Bare Knuckle play for us over in Birmingham. I think they're Bare Knuckle Asylum now, and they're amazing. They're a superb band, and people are just picking up on them at the moment. And you'll see them at a Hard Rock Hell, that's for sure. But you'll see them on other bills. But they were one of these bands that took the opportunity to reach out to people and say, "We realise you're losing bands here and there. We are available. We'd love to come and do this. Would you consider us?" Which was great.
I think one of the things that, like I say, obviously the bands suffered, that everyone suffered and stuff like that. So we're a few years down the line, and I don't know if you still see this, but I've definitely seen it myself. You still have people who are I've got social anxiety, and the fear of coming to a big festival is still there. I feel like, you know what I mean. In events, especially indoors, there's people who don't feel comfortable, and
No. I
it's
think you're right. There are people that used to come to events that we haven't seen in 4 or 5 years. I mean, anecdotally, I was in London with my daughter on Friday, and there were people on the tube wearing masks. I mean, COVID hasn't gone away. You know, to
No.
some people, it's very real. You know,
Mhm.
it's still around, and it's still a threat, and it's still something to be wary of, or to be careful about. So, and I think again, maybe I don't know whether the restaurant trade's suffering as a result of that now. I wouldn't want to speculate, but it's the same thing. You're right. There's social anxiety about being around people with the potential to catch something that you could either pass on and somebody else gets it and dies, or you could die yourself, and that's a frightening thing.
Have you guys made any changes to the way, like, you make events happen due to that?
In what sort of respect do we? I mean, yeah,
So,
in what respect?
so obviously, if there are people who are a little bit wary, should we say, is there an opportunity, or is there something that festivals can do to adopt and, like, make people ease the mind a little bit, that, like, these festivals, we do everything to make it a little bit more safer for yourself. I know it's hard to explain, but how do you stop the social anxiety of people? Like, you know what I
I
mean?
mean, you would hope that people want to talk to you and sort of, tell you what their fears are or what they worry about. So at the very least, you can try and reassure them. One of the things that we've done that, depending on your point of view, it's either controversial or it's not. But people have rolled over their tickets to next year, and done that a couple of times because they've bought tickets they've paid for. So they've rolled them over, and then they've come when they are comfortable to do that. And again, anecdotally, we have a sci-fi event, SFW, and it's a very different kind of audience, and a lot more people come on their own or just in couples. And there are people there by the very nature of sort of the acts and the artists that we have that are nervous about being around people for that reason. And we see a lot of masks at that as well. And
Mm.
we do what we can, but we're safety conscious, we're first aid conscious, always have been. But in terms of the actual anxiety, I think when people arrive and they start spending a couple of hours there or a night there, if it's a residential thing, I think people find their feet again. They get back into the groove of being around people and talking and catching up with people they haven't seen for a while. And I guess beer helps with that, catching, having a couple of drinks, and I think that certainly helps. One of the things that has changed slightly, I think, at Hard Rock Hill, it happened before, but it's a lot more, obvious now, or a lot more apparent, is that the artists will spend time with the audience at the bar after a set or after a show. You see a lot more of the artists walking around, and and I don't know if that's because they know, they've got to sort of catch back up on having more people around them again, or becoming more popular or more aware of them, or whatever, or whether it's they're just grateful that or glad or happy that people are there to come and see them, and they want to say thank you.
Or it
And you
could,
do
or
see a
it,
lot of bands at the bar.
it could
From my
actually be. It could
experience,
actually be what happened we were talking about before, though. When they couldn't do it, they learned to reach out to people over the internet and social media and YouTube and things like that. So perhaps I think bands have realised that that is what it's about finding your clan. So I think maybe that's helped as well. Whereas they used to stand back and waiting if people coming to them, they're more used to being proactive now. So when they go to a gig, I mean, my big Scouse mate there does it better than anybody when they're gigging. Christ, he talks to everybody,
I mean,
and
he's the perfect example of what's right about that as well, because he does engage with the audiences. And in Yarmouth, there's a great big merch area where bands can come off stage. We had Lizzie Borden did it at the last Hard Rock Hell. Big name bands or grassroots bands will go into that merch thing and sign a CD or have a selfie with somebody while they're buying a T-shirt or whatever else. And it's valuable to people. It's valuable to fans. It's an experience. I'm very lucky that I've bumped into, people over the last 7 years, some of them my heroes, or people that I've had a lot of time for, or, really, got some respect for. And I've managed to say hello or get a handshake or a selfie. And those are your anecdotes in the pub when you're talking to your mates, that time you did this or that, or, that time I bumped into whatever, or that time Fish Fish, gave me a call on the phone because there was a miscommunication in an email and you just wanted to call up and say, look, I hope this is cool and whatever. These are great stories. And I think music fans, and I think, like you say, you find your tribe. these are the stories that you like to share with people. These are the stories that people like to hear as well. It's important. And as I say, Jono's a good example of that. They are around talking to people afterwards who'll come up and say, thanks, that was a great set or whatever. Nice to meet you. Do you want a selfie or whatever, all that kind of stuff. It is valuable, very valuable.
I think from my perspective, obviously, I've seen both sides. I think if you're going out there and you're playing, and this is advice to up and coming bands more than anything, get to know these people, because these people will travel. These fans will travel everywhere to anything, and they have some of the best stories you'll ever have. You can talk to them for hours on end. The amount of people that I've met at HRH events has been awesome. I'm still mates with them now, and obviously with me, the new band coming up and stuff like that, they're straight away. Oh, what are you playing? When are you playing? Let us know and stuff like that. And you've got to do. You can't see it as a job. Sometimes you've got to see it as making new friends. And I think I've been blessed with multiple occasions of meeting so many people, and I mean that. And that includes yourself, John. You know what I mean. We wouldn't be talking today if it weren't for being down on HRH. We've had many a chat about so many different things. And it's like you chat about anything, and it's nice to hear their side of it as well. And I think that's something that what I love about these festivals, from yourself to you name it. It's like fans are there; they want to talk to you. They see you as a rock star. I see them as me, because I'm the same. We go to another gig, and next minute we're watching them, going, "Oh, this is amazing." Everyone's a fan.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. I mean, I've always made a point for every event I've been. There aren't many people that will see this that have been to a HRH that won't know who I am. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. What I mean is that I'm always visible. I'm always around checking people are cool, they're okay, things are going well, watching the bands, all that kind of stuff. I'll stop and talk to anybody as well and make sure that they're all right, if they've got a problem or if they're just, they just want to come and say hi. But that's the point. The point is you're around. It's people aren't just there to watch a band and go home. They're there to experience that weekend. And that's all part of that, being around everybody and helping them enjoy themselves.
So we obviously talked about the fans and stuff like that, and we could talk about loads of bits and pieces. One thing that I find interesting is obviously you are one person. One thing that I always love about festivals is a lot of people don't understand how many staff you have for a festival. What do they do? And how do you organise
it? Yeah. I mean, we're a smaller team than we were, but right down to the sales, the social media, there's somebody booking the bands, there's somebody liaising with the artists and making sure they've got what they need there, somebody that's on hand if a band needs a visa or information on getting transport from one place to the other. Every aspect of what happens, somebody's selling the merch, somebody's choosing the DJs that are playing the songs in between the bands. Everything is taken care of. HRH are very lucky, and I don't know how many other events out there have got the same sort of thing, but we got a radio station and a magazine, so we've got 45 maybe DJs right now on Hard Rock L Radio. So at a Hard Rock event, there's 4 or 5 DJs that'll come and play that. I've DJed at some of the prog ones and the stoner ones. We've got people on hand that will do all that stuff. But we're not unique. We're not no different than in other event. You need somebody to sell the t-shirts. You need somebody at reception when you're picking up your keys or you're getting your wristband or whatever else. It's all a lot goes on behind the scenes. And I don't know whether it's a compliment or not. But if people turn up and all they do is pick up a wristband, then go watch some bands, and they're happy with that, and they're not thinking about all the other stuff. If it's all happens seamlessly in the background, well, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's like they say, when I used to, believe it or not, in my past I was a rugby league referee. And I always remember when I started doing it, and this old boy said to me, who was an ex-referee, he says, you've had a good game, he says, when nobody's talking about you.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
And I think that's the thing.
I think what we're talking about, that sort of thing, I mean, it's sort of off topic, but about the same sorts of things. Social media is, it's in everybody's lives now. It's everywhere. But it's not reliable. It's not particularly honest. And I think being around people at the event is a far better way to experience it than to experience somebody else's opinion. I think, and not know for yourself. You should be going to these things. There's so many great events that happen over the course of the year. Some are long weekends, some are just all dayers. Some are just a couple of nights here and there. But you should experience everything. You should go see those things. You shouldn't worry about what you're reading or what you're listening on, because it's somebody's opinion, usually somebody else's spin on it as well. I'm not saying for a second that there's no truth on there, because I'm sure there is, and I know there is. But experience it. Go out and do it. Go out and see it. Go and be a part of it, because it's brilliant.
I think that's one of the things that I can remember the first time. I think a couple of the bands years ago, 5, 6 years ago. In fact, literally at the time when we interviewed you last, there were a couple of the bands I worked with at the time got booked onto HRH, and it was mental, because I was getting people that I didn't really know messaging me saying, "Oh, watch them. You shouldn't be putting your bands into there." And I'm like, "What are you on about?" And then I spoke to a couple of bands that done quite a few of your gigs, and they're like, "Don't know what they're talking about, mate. John, honestly, your bands will love it." So I just went, and my bands didn't even hear about it. I just went, "Go, do it." Now, my big mate there was one of them when he went on, and but it's funny. There's a lot of people love HRH. There's a lot of people go, obviously, because you do well, but there are detractors, and they're a noisy set when they want to be. And it's usually based upon somebody said, somebody said, somebody said, not their own, or as I can see it, not something that they've witnessed or done. And yet, this big man here loves going to your place, and a lot of people do. The one thing I've never noticed is I've noticed a lot of HRH, the people actually go to the gigs defending you against these trolls, for want of a better word. But I never see HRH saying it. And that kind of like, I've often wondered about that, John.
Do you want to be enigmatic about it, or just tell you what the fact of the matter is, that social media is such a vast and noisy place that you're talking to a minority. You're talking people believe what they want to believe. And if you go back to your referee story there, I don't know many bands that walk away from a HRH and say we've had a shit day there today. We haven't been treated right while we were there, or whatever else. There aren't many, but, I'm sure there will be, and maybe people that are listening to this will want to pipe up, because that's what happens on social media, or that's what happens online. They give you examples. But, I think we treat the bands on the day really, really well. And I think, a lot of bands will say, we had low expectations, but we've had a great day. Thank you.
Let's talk about something quite humorous in a way. I've got a question here for you. What is the strangest request that you've had off a band? And don't name the band.
Strangest request?
Yeah.
In terms of a rider, or
obviously we all like blue M&Ms and peach towels. So what is the strangest request from a band that you have had?
That's a really good question.
He's been up all night thinking about it.
I might be up all night trying to bleed and reply now. I can't name the artist. No, I can't name the artist. I was asked by somebody at one of our residential events, bearing in mind that the bands that stay there stay in a lodge or a caravan or whatever. I was asked to go out and buy a teaspoon. Now, they're in the drawer in your kitchen.
Was it a special kind of teaspoon?
It was the wrong shape teaspoon.
Oh, yeah. It was, yeah. It needed to be bigger.
Wow.
Oh, wow. No, you definitely can't name the band.
I can't.
Did you go out, or did you send someone out?
No, I went out. It usually is me that goes and deals with that stuff. If somebody's got a problem at one of them events, it's usually me that deals with it, unless it's something that is going to take time and takes me off site for a long time. But no, we had I don't mind naming him, because it's not an unusual story. But John Robertson, who's at the sci-fi event, does a thing called the Dark Room, which is really fun, really good stuff. He was due to go on stage, and all his equipment is controlled by an Xbox controller. And 5 minutes before he's due on stage, his Xbox controller doesn't work. So I had to drive him down to Asda to pick up a controller and get back. That kind of shit happens all the time. Somebody needs something. You got to locate batteries, or you got to locate something like a controller.
I've had experiences like that one, mate, with batteries and sound check for certain individuals, and 3-hour sound check for a Guitar Hero, and he had to change his batteries. He never changed his batteries.
Really?
He never thanked you for pointing it out either, did he?
Yeah, he was fuming. He was properly angry. I'll tell you his name after here. You'd be
Well,
surprised.
yeah, I mean, I've got anecdotes, and here's not the place to share them. But there's been some great stories. I mean, it's an experience, and some of the people you don't expect to be cool are really great people, and the people you're really looking forward to see don't quite turn out the way that you want them to, and that's a bit of a shame when that happens. But again, like all parts of this, it's the experience of it. It's the experience of the weekend. My experience is a little different to the bands. The bands is a little different to the audience. We've all got a reason why we're there, and even though it's a job, and it's long work, 18-hour days at some of these things, it's fucking brilliant. It's
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
brilliant.
I,
Why wouldn't you want to do it?
it's the best thing. I mean, I being a crap promoter myself, and thinking just the bands first and not the business side of things. I burnt loads of money over the post-COVID time, but I'll fucking tell you what, I don't regret it because what a life I had. It was brilliant.
Man,
You know,
how many people can say that Dora Pesh leaned over and went, "Oh, that's a lovely beard." It's amazing.
that's where you get the cold sore from. She touched
Yeah,
there.
yeah, no, it wasn't off Dora Pesh. Don't start that rumor. Fuck it up. It's like it was Toby Jepson.
Ah, well, there you go. There you go.
You can see this
That
now,
does
can't
that
you?
doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
So, so
So,
Johnny boy, what's the
question for you.
future? Oh wait, sorry, pal.
I've
When you
got
go,
one more,
John.
mate, one more, and then you can have a question. I'm being greedy. Sack that off.
That
What was the last band T-shirt you wore?
that I wore.
Yeah, or you bought? Or you bought?
Teenage Fan Club last week.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good choice. Good Scottish band.
great Scottish band, wonderful Scottish band.
Yeah, one of the best. One of the best of the time. Anyway, brilliant band. Right.
Go on.
So, what has the future, the near future, got for Mr. John Ellis? Can you shine a light onto that? What's your plans,
Yeah, I
pal?
mean, I've got some things going on at the moment. Those that see me on social media will see that I've been sharing an online record store called Slow Century Records. It's something that started off during the pandemic. I bought collections with a mate, and we've been selling stuff online, and that's grown. And the plan is to move that to the the next level, and open up some sort of record shop in the future.
Oh, but man, that takes me back. That is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I'm a lot older than you guys, and that's how I well, apart from my cousin who was 5 years older than me when I was about 12, and he was working and buying records and introduced me to the Who and Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Yes and all that. But once I got to the age when I was actually earning a bit of money, every Saturday that's where I was, the local record store in here,
Me too.
and with the
Me too.
headphones
Every
on.
Saturday without fail.
Yeah, brilliant. Now that's what's missing. That's what's missing for the music scene. And I'm not being an old fart here. It was that experience when the guys behind the counter got to know your taste, and then you came in. They went, "It's a new band come out. Yeah, I think you might like them here." And then you put it on the headphones, and you're like, "Yeah, this is cool."
I mean, the amazing thing was that a record shop, and this is the kind of thing that I'd like to replicate, in the future when we do when I do open one, is that the record shop was a social hub. It
Mm.
was somewhere to be at the weekend, like you say, where you could hear something for the first time. And I've bore people shitless about this stuff. I've done it before, and again, I'm very privileged because I've spoken to artists over the years and interviewed them and had conversations, and they share similar stories as well. You've got Spotify now, so you hear a song or you want to hear a song, it's there. You've got it straight away, and that's fine. I don't have a drama with that. It's great that people are going out and discovering new music, either for themselves or brand new bands or whatever. But what's missing, and it's a shame because you'll never really get it back, was when I was 16, 17, if I read about a song that I hadn't heard in Kerrang, I might hear it on Tommy Vance. I might have a mate with an older brother who's got it,
Mm.
and I might not be able to get it in Woolworths. You've got to go out somewhere far away. Birmingham, you've got to go to an independent shop, go in there. The guy will tell you if he's got it. He'll play it for you, stick some headphones on, all that kind of stuff. It was a great way of discovering new music. And I don't mind that it's instant now. I think it's good for bands that people can go, oh, these are supposed to be quite good. Let me just check them out. And that's great. But you had to put the work in. You had to put the legwork in back then. You had to go to a record shop, and like you say, the guy behind the counter, if he had it, he'd play it for you and say, "Yeah, you just check these out. They're great. If you like these, I've got this by this band here as well. They're pretty similar. These guys are playing in Birmingham next week. There was a social aspect to it that's kind of lost. And the plan with the shop itself is, without sort of giving too much away right now. I mean, I will make posts about this when the time's right, when I start pursuing this and it becomes a thing. There was you could buy concert tickets there. You could buy memorabilia there. You could buy all these things. You go into a record shop, and we'll be doing it. We're going to have a big L-shaped sofa in the window. You could hear artists perform. There are local artists, that used to come in and drop their demos off, or a notice board where you pulled a thing off, because they were looking for a vocalist with a phone number on, so you could go and call them or whatever else. It wasn't just about, and it shouldn't just be about selling records and selling music. It's about musicians, artists, fans, all those people having somewhere where they can buy records, but where they can share what they've got as well, or pass on a recommendation. Every now and again, I still buy records now. I've never really stopped. And there's a record shop I use in Kings Heath, and I'll name it. It's Polar Bear. It's a great record shop. And Steve knows, he loves his black metal. You wouldn't know it to look at him, but he loves his black metal. But if you go in and go, I've just heard so and so by so and so, he'll say, yeah, hang on. He'll stick it on and he'll play it for you. And then the next time you come, you'll go, that track you liked. Band have just released this album. It sounds, it's that sort of sound. It's got that kind of feel to it. Check this out, and they want you to hear the music. They don't just want to sell you the record. They want to sell you the idea of the band and what they are and what they sound like and what scene they might be a part of. And it's a shame because you don't see too many scenes these days. And I'll just grab, gangster rap was a thing, Britpop was a thing, thrash was a thing for a while. All those things that people cottoned onto, you just don't see it anymore. It's not really there. It all exists online. And as I say, I don't mind it being immediate. I don't mind that people can go online and read about a band straight away because it's great for the bands. I would hope that helps them gain some notoriety. What's the word I'm looking for? A presence, sort of fan base. A little quicker than it would have done in the past. So I would hope that helps. And then people are interested enough to go and see them live, to go and check them out. Or if they, it turns out they're supporting a band, in town that they like, that they'll go and see the support act and they'll stick around, they'll go in early and stick around for 2 or 3 bands. I would hope that that's all part of the same thing. But record shops aren't record shops like I remember them anymore. And I'd like to try and bring that back.
I think that's cool. Can you open it in Liverpool?
Yeah.
Liverpool's got some great record shops. I've shopped in Liverpool. Liverpool's got some decent places.
It has. I love the actual idea and thought of that, John, to be perfectly honest, mate, because obviously growing up, we had to wait till Saturday to hear what was the top of the chart. And then it was like, did they have the record, the tape, anything like that and stuff?
Absolutely.
And the one thing which, as I say, I still collect vinyl to this day. Like, you know what I mean? I've got loads of Sabbath, some rare extreme albums and stuff like that. I love it. And it's collectibles. It feels like you've got something. And I think a lot of people don't understand. Obviously, as you said, it's great that you can get it on demand straight away and stuff like that. But there's nothing better than opening up a vinyl, flipping it over after 4 songs. It's a warmer sound. I don't know what it is.
I completely agree. And the other thing there is, and people say it all the time, I think old farts like us probably bore the younger audiences now. But the thing about that is that somebody's taken time to write some linear notes there. Some lyrics. There's some photos that you're not going to see elsewhere that have been taken specifically for that piece of music at that part in time. It's somebody's put thought into that, and I'm very lucky. I've worked with bands and I've put out albums and CDs as well, and I can see the work that goes into that. And you'll know this as well. Somebody has to think about that concept about what it looks like, where the logo goes. Yeah. Where the picture is at the back. How you access the lyrics or whatever. Thought goes into that. And it should be celebrated. It should be a thing that people get excited about. Now, whether or not that's because I'm the age I'm at, and I think the youth. My son's Jake's 20, and Jake buys. He's into hip hop, and he buys vinyl and buys records, and he gets it. He understands it. But that's probably because of me. That's probably I don't think his mates were saying we should start buying records.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain to someone who's just listens to it on Spotify. But the first time you get that vinyl record and you open it up, the lyric sheet's on the sleeve inside or inside the double open, and you're reading the lyrics as it's playing and you're listening to it gives you that connection, I feel. You know what I mean? Especially when the artwork, if you look at look at something like, let's go with Iron Maiden or Black Sabbath and stuff like that. The detail in the actual vinyl cover, the actual vinyl, like, even to the point where there's collectible colouring on the vinyls.
No, I think you're right, and I think Iron Maiden's a good example. An Iron Maiden release was celebrated because it was Iron Maiden, and people were excited to hear new music. But people wanted to see that cover, wanted to see what Derek Riggs had done next. You wanted to know the next progression of the story with Eddie or whatever. You're absolutely right. It wasn't just about buying that record; it was where he was at that point in time.
I remember when my cousin was about 5 years older than me. I can remember the first time I picked up the album. He'd just got it, and I think it was Sold Our Souls for Rock and Roll, Black Sabbath. Now, if you remember, it was a double album, and it was just quite plain on the outside, black and red writing, I think. But then when you opened it up, there was a bloody booklet. Well, fuck me, I tell you, I could remember everything in that booklet at the time. I could tell you word for word what it said. I remember all the pictures. That I was just absolutely blown away with stuff like that. Or when I got the first Kiss Alive album, Kiss Alive 2, and all that sort of stuff. It was magic. It wasn't a music in them days wasn't a bad. I mean, I remember listening to Lemmy talk, and he said that one of the reasons why when he was in Anglesey he got into music was girls coming from Liverpool over there on holiday and talking about music. And the reason why they knew the bands before he did was because of the docks and American sailors bringing their records over to Liverpool. Then Liverpudlians then found out this music, and then they started liking it. And then he would go. Then he had to drive to some place to buy it, and they'd order it specially. And it was like a guitar shop, but they would order these records. And he said that's what it was. There was a mystique about it. Then you had to work hard to get to it. And that's why I said there was such why the Mersey beat happened. It was because of the American sailors bringing those records in from America at the time in the 50s and all that. And I mean, I thought, and that's what I felt like with albums and Christ, even singles. I can remember getting one of Meatloaf's, I think it was, and it was in picture art. So the single was like, I think it was Bat Out of Hell, the motorbike or something. I remember looking at that and thinking that was just wonderful. Or Cold as Ice by Foreigner and See
That was the thing. I mean, 7 inches would come in a picture bag, wouldn't they? And you could open it out to a poster or whatever. And again, thought had gone into this. There was detail that you wouldn't expect to see, and there are still. I mean, I still buy records now, and there still are new releases and some reissues where you can see time and care has got into it. I mean, anybody that likes the Smashing Pumpkins, despite the fact it's incredibly expensive, should buy Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness because it's 4 vinyl, it's a booklet, it's a poster, it's cards, it's all sorts of stuff, and each lyric's there on an individual page. Somebody has taken absolute time and care, to make that a brilliant experience. And what better to lie back on the sofa or on your bed or wherever wherever you consume it with your headphones on or whatever, reading the back and looking at it while you're listening to the music. Maybe I'm over romanticised it, but
no,
for me,
you know what?
It's perfect.
It's like me and my missus. We used to always go every Saturday, and the collectible side of things. As you say, it's more than art. It's collectible. I can go on about Marillion. Marillion did picture discs, which were phenomenal. And I mean, you've got Punch and Judy, where it's like all the jester artwork, and it was the shape of the jester, and you'd spin it around, you'd be like, this is amazing. This is and it's a piece of art. But like you say, obviously the future, this is the future for you as well. And you were saying potentially that you could look at different things, i.e. getting people to advertise bands and stuff like that. This is this is what we grew up with. This is how we communicated. Yeah, it's great that you can do it on that, but I think you'll find a lot of younger people will be interested. Because obviously starting a band or anything like that, there's not many places who do things like this because they're looking everything's online, and to get somewhere online, you have to pay for something online or something like that. I've got many experience ripping numbers down off walls, going, I'm a guitarist. Can you
pull the thing off with the phone number and give it? It's not. I mean, obviously, it is about selling records because I've got to eat.
No, okay.
but it's the experience around it, and like you say, encouraging younger people there, or musicians, or people that need some advice, or can you put me in touch with, or whatever. I'm again privileged because of what I've been doing for Hard Rock Hell. I know a little bit about press, or management, or whatever. I can point people in the right direction, maybe offer advice here and there, but that's what I want to encourage. I don't want to encourage people just to come in and buy records. I want them to find a space where they can enjoy the music and enjoy the stuff around it, and let's see what happens. But yeah, once it all begins, I would hope that lots of people want to get involved.
Well, we would love to share that information once you've got it. So if you
should come down to Birmingham, you should do this from the shop. At some point.
Would that be cool?
Do it live from a record shop.
We would love to. When you get established, let us know, and we would gladly come down and do a full tour of the shop, a full experience. We'll get it. You know what I mean?
There's a Facebook page for Slow Century Records right now, and it's just growing. And we've got a brilliant logo, brilliant style logo. I think you'll like it, Jono.
Nice one. I'll check it out. It's actually on my screen at the moment.
Is it really?
Yeah, kid you not, right? Just to prove. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. That's all I'm going to say. If you know, you know.
Yeah, if you know, you know. Absolutely.
What we will do is we will put the link down below as well.
No, that's great. Please do.
There's a Facebook. It is.
Thank you. There's a Discog store right now, and we're selling some quite rare rock and metal stuff on there. So any support would be good. There'll be some merch with that very cool logo that people can help support us with, and yeah. But I'll once the time's right, in the not too distant future, I'll start posting pictures and letting people know what we're doing, and that'll be the plan. But for now, we're still booking for Hard Rock Hell for next year. We've pretty much booked all of the events for next year now. I'm pretty sure there'll be some announcements from people shortly about who's playing and who's not. We're bringing in some new bands that you've never seen before.
There's one of them. There's one of the words rhyme with bread, and another one with yeah.
Yeah, you might be on the right track.
No comments on that one, and obviously it hasn't been announced yet.
But yeah, there's still plenty of work to be done. There's a trip around America in a couple of weeks' time with a select load of bikers. There's the Prague event and the main Hard Rock Hell in November in Great Yarmouth. We got Electric Six playing at that, which I'm really looking forward to. There's punk and sleaze is on the way. The new sleaze lineup's gone out, and people seem really happy with that, which is great. There's plenty going on. It's it's a busy time.
Well, John, I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's always a pleasure to catch up, and I'm sure we will. I'm going to put it out on it. We are going to catch up in the new venture, and we'll be on that couch, mate. Obviously, drinking coffee, beer, whatever.
You come do that. It'd be really cool. But that'll be the other thing. We'll be doing some podcasts from the shop, and we'll be doing some some sessions and that kind of thing. It's we could talk about all the stuff in the past that we loved and what will make a great record shop, but we can still utilize what's happening in the present right now and use social media and videos and podcasting and all that kind of stuff. So people can that aren't around, that are too far away, can check out what we're doing and maybe get involved in that as well. There are some things that we're going to do on social media. There's going to be a campaign around people holding their favourite album, either doing a video or a photograph, and just a little brief explanation of why every collection should have this particular album. So we want to get lots of people involved in that as well.
That's cool. That's really cool, mate.
John, have you got anything else that you want to say, mate, before we go?
No, I've probably said too much already. It's always a pleasure. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, mate, it's our pleasure. Listen, I love catching up with you. You're an absolute legend, and like I say, I can't wait to have a beer with you, and we'll catch up properly, mate. Like I say, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot. John, over to you, mate. Let's end the show.
Well, there you go, folks. If you haven't learned anything there, then there's something wrong with you. So you know what to do. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe and tell all your mates. This is the Scouser on the Scot, and we're here to stay.